Okay, we're going to be doing absolute value equations this time. We'll start out with one that says that, well, think about this. Absolute value of x equals 7. What possible values could you put for x that would make it come out to be true? Well, one thing you know is that any number you put in between those two is going to come out to have an absolute value of 7. So what are the two numbers that you could put? You could put 7, and the absolute value of 7 is 7. Or you could put -7, and the absolute value of -7 is 7. Remember, absolute value is the distance from 0 on the number line, and distance is always positive. So even if it's -7, the absolute value will be 7, and when it's +7, the absolute value is 7. So remember this, two possible answers for this. So now we have x minus 2 instead of just x equals 7. So the absolute value will have two answers. One of them will be -7 and one of them will be +7. So we have x minus 2 equals 7, and we have x minus 2 equals -7. So we have two possible answers. So we write two possible equations. And then we solve those equations just like normal. We write +2 on this side and +2 on this side. We get x equals 9. Then we draw a line over here. +2 on this side, +2 on this side. X equals -5. Now let's check our answer. We've got 9. 9 minus 2 is 7, and the absolute value of 7 is 7. We've got -5. -5 minus 2 is -7, and the absolute value of -7 is 7. Just what we wanted. So two possible answers when you're dealing with absolute value. All right, it's your turn. You work this one. It's a two-step equation. You're used to doing that. Remember, there's going to be two possible answers. Pause the video, work the problem, and then get back with me. Okay, we've got 3x plus 2 equals 14. We write two equations. We write 3x plus 2, x plus 2 equals 14. And we write 3x plus 2 equals -14. We solve each one. We go -2 on this side. We get 3x equals 12. Then we divide by 3 on both sides. And we get x equals 4. Then on this side, we go line, -2 minus 2. 3x equals -16. Divide by 3, divide by 3. X equals -5 1/3. So let's go check our answer. 3 times 4. 3 times 4 will be 12, plus 2 is 14. Absolute value of 14 is 14. Now we've got -5 1/3. 3 times -5 1/3 is -16. -16 plus 2 is 14. Absolute is -14, and the absolute value of -14 is 14. All right, now this one. One of the things that you got to remember whenever you're doing absolute value is this. It's just like if you've got 3x equals 15. The goal is to isolate the variable whenever it's in this form. Well, the goal whenever you're dealing with absolute value is to isolate the absolute value. Okay? So just like you would get rid of the x by dividing by 3, get rid of the 3 by dividing by 3 so that you would only have x, over here we only want to have absolute value equals. So we've got to get rid of this -3. Let me get the eraser and get this off here. So we want to divide by -3. So we draw a line, divide by -3. You can't solve an absolute value equation until you've got the absolute value isolated all by itself. I guess that's redundant, but anyway. So it gives us absolute value of x equals -5. And believe it or not, you're through with the problem at this point because absolute value is always positive. Okay, remember that? Remember back over here when we started the whole thing? Absolute value of 7 is 7. Absolute value of negative 7 is 7. It doesn't matter what you put in here. The absolute value is going to be positive. So when we come back over here to this problem, and we've got absolute value of x equals negative 5, there is nothing. You can't put 5 in there and get negative 5. You can't put negative 5 in there and get negative 5. You would always get a positive number. So this means no solution. So if you have absolute value equals a negative number, that means no solution. All right, now, this one's, once again, remember what I told you is that you have to isolate the absolute value before you can solve the problem. So the first thing that we need to do is add 2 to both sides. And that gives us 4 times the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 4. Now you might be tempted to go 4 times x and 4 times 2, but that's not what this is. That's not a parentheses there. So the next thing you got to do is divide by 4. And that gives you the absolute value of x minus 2 is equal to 1. And now we've isolated the absolute value symbol, so we can go x minus 2 equals 1 and x minus 2 equals negative 1. We go plus 2 and plus 2. X equals 3. And we go plus 2 and plus 2. And x equals 1. So those are our 2 answers. All right, your turn. Remember, isolate the absolute value symbol first, then solve the problem by writing your 2 equations. Pause the video, work the problem, and then come back to me. Okay, so we've got minus 12 on both sides of the equal sign. That gives us 3 times 2z plus 9 is equal to negative 12. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. 2z plus 9 is equal to negative 4. And what do you know? I hope that you recognize this, that you cannot do it because it says absolute value is equal to a negative number. That means no solution. Did you remember that? No solution. All right, this one, let's try it. See, the reason I've got this one here is because whenever you look at it, it's very tempting to go, oh, it's got a negative number here, so that means no solution. But remember, the first thing you got to do is isolate the absolute value symbol. So the first thing we should do is plus 12 on both sides. And that gives you 4t is equal to 8. And see, now we've got a positive number over there. So now we go 4t is equal to 8, and 4t is equal to negative 8. Divide by 4, divide by 4, we get t equals 2. And over here we do the same thing. We divide by 4, we divide by 4, and we get t is equal to negative 2. So be careful, don't always assume. Make sure that you do your work first. Isolate the absolute value symbol first.